Hello, my name is Brent Stichler. I'm from the training department. Today we're going to go over how the no-blow valve works, the purpose of a no-blow valve. So we're going to get started here shortly. What we're going to start off is making sure we always wear our proper PPE. That means our gloves, our safety glasses, our hard hat, our vest, and steel-toed shoes. So the next thing we're going to start with is why do we use the no-blow valve changer? The no-blow valve changer, we use it for a couple different reasons. If we have a valve that's leaking, and this could be our valve, and we have a valve that's leaking, or we have it where it locks down and someone's broken off our tabs, if it's on a diversion, if someone's out stealing gas or turns on the meter set by itself. There's usually a lock in there, they may break that lock. So our purpose is we don't want that, we want to make sure we change out the valve and making sure it's not leaking, and we have the proper valve we can lock it if we need to. All right? The next thing I want to talk about is this piece of equipment is only good for 60 pounds, 60 PSI. So most of our service lines are 35 pounds of pressure, the service line itself. So these are well ahead of what we need. If we do have to use it on something that's over 60, what I suggest to do is we need to lower the pressure. This will not operate right. The rubbers will not withstand the pressure and it will still blow through. So the whole idea of this is to change out the valve with no blowing gas whatsoever. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to actually check our stem and our rubber that goes inside the actual no-blow valve machine and hookup, how we're going to do this. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is inspect the rubber. All right? We want to also make sure it operates nice and smooth. Okay? And we're also going to use this tool here, this crank. I know it's kind of hard to see, but this is what the crank looks like. Okay? So what we're going to do is make sure that our threads are about 4 inches sticking out at the end. You'll see 4 different thread lines. We want to make sure so we don't pull that nut off the end, and then this whole shaft could fall down inside your riser. Okay? So now we're going to check the rubber and see if it looks okay. We inspected it. It looks good, but until we get pressure on it, we won't actually see any of the openings or the splits. So right now, it all looks pretty good. You can see that. There's no tears, anything on it. So it's a pretty good working shape. So the next thing we know, we're going to get it ready to put it inside our valve. So there again, I brought it out to make sure I have 4 threads showing here at the end. You'll see the threads. So my next step is going to be, I'm going to grease the valve. The rubber and the stem. So we're going to go like so. And you don't have to put a ton on there, but put enough that you're a little bit generous, but not too much, because that's going to catch all the crap that's inside that riser. We don't want steel particles. Next thing we want to do is also grease the shaft here. And that'll make it easier to move it, because there's O-rings inside here. If they don't have any grease on them, a lot of times you'll hear some leaking. All right, so we inspected everything. We looked it all over. It's in good shape, so it's time to put it on the valve itself. Okay, so we can move it up and down, whatever we want to do. So we're going to put it on here like so. I'm going to tighten it up. And I always like to tighten it by hand, just to be on the safe side. We're going to tighten it just a little bit with a crescent wrench. One thing you want to remember to do is a lot of times you're okay, but the biggest step you want to do before you even put the clamp on here, let's make sure we can get this lock ring broke loose from the riser. Okay? So what we're going to do is have this pipe wrench on here, and then we're also going to have a backup tool. So our backup tool would go on the riser to hold it in place, and that way we can move the riser and break it loose. Okay? Because a lot of times you're working with several different things. You may have bushes in the way, you may have roses in the way, you may have trees in the way, anything in front of the meter, so it's hard to get there. So you always want to make sure before you hook your actual clamp and everything on that you're going to remove the lock wing with, so you have room in there. So sometimes you may have to move the bushes back, but if you hook all this up and then you don't have the lock wing itself broke loose, you're going to struggle. All right? So the next thing we're going to do, I'll lay that out. So I'm going to take the crank like this, and now this will move up and down, okay? There's a purpose for that, okay? We're just going to set that on there like so, okay? Just for right now. Now we're going to put on our actual clamp tool, what we use to actually put on here for our safety device. Two things I want to show you. There are two different pins. You can see those. The long pin is for when you need to rethread the riser. The riser's in bad shape, you start to pull off the lock wing and you know you got leaks there. The longer one is available for you to slide over and actually rethread. So when you put it back on the set here, on the clamp itself, the longer one is what you want to do, what you want to use. If you had the shorter one and you don't have any issues with the riser itself, then you can use the shorter one. Okay, so the shorter one, all it is just a little pin. It's got threads on there. Biggest thing is set it here for a minute. It's always something. That's taking too long. Okay. So we're going to squeeze that up tight. Now, if you get this bracket in there and it doesn't have the clamps on it, you cannot use it. Okay, this tool is designed to have a safety clamp on top and a safety clamp below, so this doesn't fly out of there and hit you in the face. Because a lot of times your meter sets are not up here. Where are they? They're down below. So when you're leaning over the top of it, you see this right here, it could actually jab you or hit you in the face. That's why you want to be paying attention all the time. So what we're going to do is put this on here like so. So with this bottom part here, that has to line up with the bottom of the valve, okay? And like I said, or maybe you didn't say it before, that's 2 5/8. So if you don't have the pin, you can measure it out 2 5/8. So as I'm going to show you here, okay, we're at 2 5/8. Got it on there good and tight. So the next thing I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to open up my valve. We're going to use this piece here with the shaft to go down inside the riser. But there's only one way we can do it. And I'll show you what we're going to do. So I've got this pulled all the way up. Let's make sure we screw this up and I'll show you what this is about. This is a relief, kind of a where you can see gas blow out. Today we're using air. So first thing I'm going to do is open this up. Make sure when you open it up, it's perfectly up and down. Like so. So the next thing we're going to do is this has the old style valve on it. So what we have to do is move this around. There is an arrow on it, and you line that arrow up with the shaft or the valve. I guess it would be the valve. What do you want to call that? I've screwed it up now. But anyway, we're going to slide it down like so. Okay? I'm going to bring this over here. Probably going to have to start over. Hopefully you can edit that stuff out of there. Okay. Now what we're ready to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this off, check and make sure we have the 4 threads there. Now we're going to do our cranking. When we turn this, we want to make sure that the rubber doesn't get turned too quick so it doesn't have a chance to expand its full width. So we're going to go, I like to turn it a little bit, let it relax. Turn it a little bit. Let it relax. Turn it a little bit more. Let it relax. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it to see if it's still leaking and where we're at, or if we need to go turn it a little bit more. Getting pretty low now. So I'm going to screw it back up. I'm going to turn it again. Still not enough. So we're going to go a couple more times. There you go. Okay? So what I like to do is I like to leave that open in case this gets moved around or bumped and it starts leaking again, then I can crank this cranker down a little bit more and cut the rubber all the way out. One thing you want to remember, when you bury it and you can't get it to stop leaking, never take a pipe wrench and force it. If you force it, it'll break off down inside the pipe, and then you won't. Only way you'll get the lock wing out is by pulling off manually, and you could have gas blowing in your face and the tool is broken. You'll have to try something else. So one of the main things you guys saw that I did was make sure I had the safety clamp on here. This is our number one thing. We want to make sure we're using these. We do not use this tool without the safety clamp. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this riser. Okay? So the biggest thing we're going to do is I'm going to keep turning it. Okay, pull it up like so. And when you look down inside there, you'll see where the rubber is right flush with the top of where the threads are. Okay? Now, if you don't have it and the rubber's sticking outside of that, when you're taking this valve off, the valve can cause problems where it's cutting into the rubber. Okay? So now that I got that tight, I'm going to set that down on there like so. And that's our safety device there, that clamp, so that doesn't come up out of there. So now what we're going to do is unturn this. Move it out of the way, and I can still hear a little bit of air. As we call it, gas in the field. So what I'm going to do is tighten it up. Goes away. All right? So now we're ready to take this off. We're not going to take the stem out. But we're going to pull this up. When you pull it up real slow because there's O-rings inside there. And these threads up here can scratch the O-ring or nick it. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is set this aside. I'm going to put this back over here just for safety. And keep it like so. And you'll see there is some movement. But right now you're not hearing any gas with what we're doing. We're using air, so nothing's coming out of it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this valve on. So this is a brand new valve. It's a ball valve. So if everybody knows what a ball valve is, I'll come up to the camera. You see the ball valve goes clear through. Okay, it's like actually like a ball. Clear through. You see it? Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. First thing we're going to do is put pipe dope, whatever you're using, anti-seize, whatever it may be, on your threads here. You're going to also thread up your threads here. If the threads are dirty, you're going to take a wire brush, you're going to clean them all off. And put your pipe dope or your anti-seize on there. Alright? So you're going to want to go all the way around your threads. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the valve connection that we used on our old valve. All right? So what we're going to do, put this on here like so. Like I said, we want to make sure we have this good and with a lot of pipe dope on here and some pipe dope on here. So now what we're going to do is remove this like so. Get it out of our way. And we've already got our lock wing open. Always want to make sure it's perfectly straight up and down. It's a little bit at an angle. Pretty good. So now we're going to slide this over like so. Let that rest on there. Next thing we're going to do is put this back on here. And where you want to put it, you'll see the little brass ring. You want to put it just above the brass ring. Got it tapered in there. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is remove the bottom bracket clamp. And this is usually the hardest thing to do for the whole of the change out of the valve. So we're going to have to move it back and forth. So this will move for us. We want to get it lined up. Another thing we want to do is we want to remove this pin. And the reason I want you to remove this pin, because these valves could be a different length. And the pin is in there. Okay, the reason we remove this pin is because when you tighten down on it, if the valve is longer than what the other valve was, this pin could come down and get broke inside the actual clamp. So always remove it before you do any tighten down. All right? So next thing we're going to do is turn this until we get it good and snug. And I like to take the pipe wrench. I like to snug it up just a little bit, and I'll make the final when I'm actually checking it. Okay, so now we're ready to release and take the rubber back out and move this stem out. Actually, we've completed it, but this is the final step that we're going to do here. So what we're going to want to do is set this on top. Slowly move this around a little bit. And what I like to do, see if I'm getting it to release. And right now you can hear it's starting to release, so the rubber is relaxing and coming down. So I'm going to go a little bit more. Let it relax. A little bit more. Let it relax. So this is the real critical part, all right? Because I'm sitting here turning this, I might want to pull this off and see how many threads I have. If I pull this off too far and unscrew it, it could have a chance as soon as I let the clamp off, the safety clamp, the pin could fall down inside the riser. All right, so we got a little bit of ways to go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to leave this on here for a reason. Always put my hands on top of here, because if you don't, it could come up and you don't have a lot of control. Now on the ball valve, there is an arrow here, but it's not going to make a concern on the shaft because the ball valves circle and it will fit right down in there. I'll show you that process. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And what I like to do is just kind of slowly bring it up. Okay, like so. And the one thing you want to do is make sure you hold it up or put your clamp back on here like so to make sure you got it where you need. And the reason for that is sometimes the shaft will fall back in there, and when you you go to shut it, shut the valve off, what happens is you can't get it shut off, so you force it, so you bend the shaft. So right now we're going to go ahead and shut it, like so. And I'm going to remove this. Take this off, it can fall down in there. Set it like so. Remove it. And then the last step is we're going to inspect this. And the reason I say we inspect this, because we use this to say we had troubles with it and we damaged the rubber or the pin, the actual shaft got bent, nobody tells anybody anything. You put it back in the box, the next person comes to use it and it's not in good shape. So inspect it, look it all over. Okay, now we're going to put it away. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hook my meter set back up. I'm going to remove my clamp, but I'm also going to soap this. Double check it, make sure it's not leaking anywhere. Even when I put my meter bar back on here, or wherever it may be going to, I'm going to check all my fittings and look it over. And then the next thing I'm going to do, like I say, is I'm going to take this apart. Be done like so. And the biggest trick of all is getting this tool back inside the box the proper way so you can shut the lid. Alright, so there we have it. We changed the lock wing. We did it safely. We didn't have any blowing gas. We do not do this without using the lock wing. We do not go out and do a valve live. This is why we have this safety equipment available. Just want to point out, if you have any questions at all, feel free to call the safety department or the training department. They will show you, or they will send you to our direction, so we make sure this is done properly. Thank you.